Alrighty. Hey everybody. Welcome to Houston, we have a problem. This is episode 12. Not much going on in the world. We'll talk about a couple of things, but I wanted to make a note that any super chats, ad revenue from this video today, all goes to the National Center for Victims of Crime and their Stalking Resources Center. So please help me help those who are the victims of stalking. I'm one of them. I deal with this crud every day for 4 years now, and there needs to be resources out there for people to help deal with these things. And I thank you all in advance if you donate to this charity today. Thank you so much, and let's get to it. Okay, so Shannon L already sent a super chat here. Thank you so much. She says, Houston, in the first is the first 5 days that qualified AMC to appear in the reg show list part of the 13 days it must remain in the list or exclusive to it? I think it's the first 5 of those 13 days. So 8 more days of being on that list should trigger something. We've seen in the past, though, that companies have remained on that list for long periods of time and nothing has been resolved. There's what should happen and what does happen, and what we're seeing is that nothing happens so far. But AMC is a really big name with a very strong stock price, which is different than what we should expect to see from companies that are normally on that list. Normally, it's companies that have been shorted down and they are considered penny stocks at this point. But AMC trading at or around $50 for weeks now means it is not a penny stock. It's a very strong stock. So I hope that we see something result as at the end of that. Speaking of AMC, Adam Aaron removed the request for 25 million shares of sale. So basically citing the investors being pissed off about that. And I don't think the investors would have had as much a problem with the 25 million shares of sale if the previous shares sold hadn't gone to short hedge funds. So I think he's learning. I think he's figuring out that he has to pay attention to the people who own his company, because AMC stockholders, the retail holders, own 85% of his company. But he's also announcing that they're going to be doing pay-per-view at some AMC theaters for the McGregor fight, which is, step in the right direction. I'm sure we can start seeing more events like that playing out as the summer goes on, and trying to get people back into the theaters, because theaters make their money off of concession sales. The amount of money they make off of ticket sales are very, very nominal. So that's why popcorn's so expensive at the theater, because that's how they make all their profit. What other news was there? I still haven't gotten my preferred shares of stock for my Torchlight shares prior to the Metamaterial merger. And then it was announced today that Metamaterial is starting human trials on their device for monitoring glucose for diabetics. So we've got No Labs, which is a company I invested in also, a friend of mine runs. They have their device, going to trials for the FDA that does something similar. So imagine, at least 30 million Americans, if not more, diabetics around the world, no longer having to prick their fingers ever again, because these two companies are now going to be competing in the world of non-invasive glucose monitoring, which, if 30 million people have to prick their finger every single day at a price of $1, right? You're looking at $30 million a day being spent on current glucose monitoring minimum. So, these devices will probably save a fortune for health insurance companies and people that need treatment, as well as, they make it less painful and less of a pain in the butt. If you can look at your smartphone and know exactly what your glucose levels are all times, then that's so much better. Like, get an alert on your phone will say, eat something now. That'd be fantastic. Than having to guess, like, oh, I feel woozy. I wonder if my glucose levels are good or bad. Then have to stab yourself to find out. There's more talk and confirmation bias going around about GameStop and their dividend. So their crypto dividend. So the date that was listed on the filing when they created their NFT, that was for the 14th, which is next. What day is it today? Today's the 6th. That's next Wednesday. So next Wednesday should be when we find out, at least then, if and when that crypto dividend would be issued. Pretty exciting stuff. Let's see here. Oh, the weird thing is, oh man, so many of you are donating. Thank you so much. But the donations don't give you the little super chat thingy, so I don't see questions come off of it. But I want to thank you so much for all these donations that are going. That's fantastic. It warms my heart that I can sit here and chat with you all for a couple hours and see that the National Crime Victims Association, National Center for Victims of Crime, which is part of the National Crime Victim Bar Association, Stalking Resource Center, is getting these donations. So thank you so much. It warms my heart, and stalking is such a weird thing that certain people do, and it's just unnerving and relentless and time consuming and exhausting and emotionally just draining. So I hope everyone get the help they need for those things, and I hope the perpetrators of stalking get the help they need, because they're mentally bonkers, especially serial stalkers. You know, it's not all people who stalk are mentally ill, but all people who serial stalk are mentally ill. And I hope they get the treatment they need, Mr. Reinierson. Okay. This is Varon Anand. Hey, Houston, what do you think of Metamaterials being on the Reg Show list in its first week on the NASDAQ? I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of us haven't received the preferred shares in our accounts yet, our brokerage accounts, because they don't know where to put these things, because all of their customers are holding synthetics in their accounts. And if they're all holding synthetics in their accounts, you can't give them the actual preferred shares of stock. And so Metamaterial, as a result of inheriting a whole bunch of that Torchlight stock into their new NASDAQ traded corporation, means that all those Metamaterial shares are now naked shorted. So there's going to have to be some sort of covering or closing of positions for the short hedge funds who generated all that stuff. We are waiting to see what comes of it, because someone, I can't remember if they, I was glancing at this earlier. I don't know if it was in this tweet. Oh yeah, Kilgore Trout. He talked to Wealthsimple. My data just died. Where'd you go? Oh, there you're back. Okay. Sorry, my internet just kind of crapped out for a second. I will reread that. Kilgore Trout, Houston, says Houston reached out to Wealthsimple in regards to Torchlight. They said it should go through between July 1st and 6th. Does that mean that they start the FTD timer and market close today? I would imagine, because those FTDs aren't just FTDs of synthetic shares, but their failure to deliver on preferred stock, which are dividends. And if you generate a synthetic share either via naked shorting or by borrowing shares to sell short from an institution or owner of that stock, you are required to provide to them any dividend that's issued. So if you can't provide the payment in lieu for that dividend, then you automatically should get margin called. I think that the powers that be at Torchlight and Metamaterials may have planned this ahead of time to sort of be a honeypot trap. I love it when it's diabolical like that. Little games of chess going on. Trying to scan here. Oh man, we've raised $70 already. Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's I feel like I'm doing March for Dimes or something right now, doing a fundraiser. Thank you so much for donating so far, everyone. thoughts and prayers. Does all this trading sideways for weeks after a huge predicted gamma never happened mean the squeeze and/or market as a whole is coiling up for some movement? Very possibly. I mean, the fact that AMC should have gamma squeezed after the close of 618 because of all those tens of millions of shares that went in the money means they now have a huge number of failure to delivers. Those failure to delivers could be a result of there's no cash available to buy the stock at the current price. It could be they're just hoping that they can sit on that threshold list forever because it's, Overstock sat on there for 2 years. Maybe they just know that those who should be regulating the market aren't doing their job, and they're just counting on that lackadaisical enforcement to keep this going forever. But there does come a point when a bill is due. Someone's going to need money from someone for something, and everyone's just biding their time at this point. And yeah, it might be calling for some sort of movement, kind of like two tectonic plates smashing into each other. That pressure builds up until something happens, and you get a big old eruption. Okay. Okay. Oh, my audio is. Everyone's still complaining about my audio. Oh man, if I go higher, I can go a little bit higher. I'm afraid I'm going to start blasting out again if I go higher with my audio, and your eardrums are going to explode out of your skulls. But there, I turned it up as high as it goes. So if I can start getting complaints about my audio being too low or too high, sorry. Okay. Get Real wants to know, where's our video about gold? Well, I got to get back into the wild so I can show you guys how to do some gold mining, and I can't do that until my truck is fixed or I get a new truck. So that's coming. Yeah, hopefully we'll get there. Okay. I want to thank some people for donating. I want to thank Chris Taylor for donating. I want to thank Bossy for donating, and Felix for donating. Also want to got a couple anonymous donors. Thank you so much, David Morgan. Thank you so much for donating to this charity live stream today. Thank you. Oh, and King Bima donated. Bima. So I live on Bainbridge Island, Washington, and our art museum, which actually is phenomenal. If you ever come to Bainbridge, visit the art museum on Bainbridge. It's free, and it will be one of the best art museums you've ever seen. And we call it Bima, the Bainbridge Island Museum of Art. So King Bima, come to Bima and see some amazing local Pacific Northwest artists, and they've got some great shows that come through there, and it's free. A really rich person built the museum, and they've got a gigantic endowment, so they can provide all that stuff for you for free. Okay, let me try to get back up to the chats here. Tom Zock is in Germany. It's midnight there. I'm sorry for doing such a late stream. I got a lot of Europeans that like to come on here. I just couldn't get my act together earlier to get the stream up and running before then. Too much to do during the day. It's such is life. Oh yeah, the shirt. I promised to do a Primo shirt. This is a Primo beer shirt from Hawaii from I think the 1960s. It is very small on me, and I'm afraid if I get too animated that I'm going to pop a button here. But I love this shirt. It's like super shiny, and it's just a beautiful piece of 1960s Hawaiian aesthetic. I love it. So this was for I think it was Pale Hawaiian. I'd asked for a Primo beer shirt a couple shows ago, and I'd promised to do it last show, but then it was 4th of July, and I wore a 4th of July shirt. So, Passive Hercules, step 1, Adam Aaron removes 25 million shares, now waiting for step 2. Adam Aaron gives tickets as dividends to shareholders. I do think that was a brilliant idea. That was it William Morgan on the last show had suggested that. And someone else tweeted that instead of doing that, AMC should offer like a subscription service, a year's subscription to, I don't know, free popcorn or whatever. And that like $23 a month, and then the short hedge funds would be required to buy a $23 a month subscription for an entire year for every share that they shorted. And I think that would be hilarious. Okay. Jimmy D says he hasn't got his Torch shares, those preferred stock shares either. So I got quite a few messages from people this week saying they still hadn't received those preferred shares in their accounts yet. And I'm waiting. I've got all my Torchlight / Metamaterials in my Fidelity account, and nothing has shown up. Okay. Can't stop, won't stop. GameStop says there's a lot of eyes on us now, so hypothetically speaking, something should be done about this shot. I don't think it was my type, but who knows? They're all friends, and the corruption is ongoing. Yeah, that's cronyism, crony capitalism. Definitely is, I think, a large part of this. So, and Can't Stop, Won't Stop also says that in Webull they haven't received their special dividends for that yet for Torchlight. So, that's, again, I think it's because of all the naked shares that were generated. We've got so many synthetics that were just pumped and pumped and pumped and pumped as Torchlight squeezed before the merger, that now we're left probably with hundreds of millions or billions of shares that don't exist, that are just synthetics in people's accounts that are expecting to get these preferred shares. And I don't know how they're going to resolve all that. Okay. Bellbox7721. Hey Wade, I found a company with 44 million shares outstanding, but institutions claim ownership of 60 million shares in their SEC 13 filings. Someone said the company's called Jink Solar. Well, I think that's probably happening a lot, especially with OTC stocks. We'll have to see. William Linfant, thank you for donating. Thank you so much. Okay. Daniel Book, AMC and GME should merge, especially when AMC starts hosting esports tournaments. I think it's a brilliant idea for AMC to host esports tournaments. It's a great way to, you do local tournaments, kind of like Little League, and Saturday mornings or something when your theater isn't being used that much, a bunch of parents and kids show up and play each other in Fortnite or Call of Duty or what other games people would do professional events for. And you can have mini tournaments and leagues and all sorts of stuff. So why not? There's a lot. It's a $200 billion industry, gaming, and esports is becoming a larger and larger portion of it. And they need venues and big screens. And, these theaters aren't full all the time. And you can schedule these events for, during days when the theater isn't being that used. And you got a lot of nerdy kids out there that would love to be playing for prize money or glamour or trophies or whatever. And that's a lot of concession sales for the AMC shops when kids want popcorn and complain to their parents they want some more melted cheese on nachos and whatnot. Sean Waters says, if the synthetics keep getting generated and we keep buying, at what point does the dam break? I don't know. I personally would have thought it would have broken by now, because if you look at GameStop alone, just Melvin back in January was losing $1 billion every single time the stock went up $11. And so now Melvin's out $30 billion total, which is 50% more than their entire fund was ever worth. So they're out $30 billion in margin on just GameStop. What else are they losing huge on that they shorted? Did they short AMC the same way? Did they short BlackBerry? Did they short Metamaterial? Did they short Bed Bath and Beyond and COS and everything else? Then you have to compound all of those huge losses by selling short when the prices were minuscule to what they are now. And I just think that the dam has to break at some point. It might be that the banks are so scared of doing a margin call because they know they're going to be on the hook for it, and they don't have the capital. We saw that doing a margin call for Archegos cost 4 huge investment banks $30 billion combined. And if they have similar margin calls for 10, 20, 30, 100, 150 hedge funds that all have huge losses like this, there's no way for them to cover any of that. And we could see a huge credit crunch. So I that might be why we aren't seeing the margin calls we should be seeing, because everyone's just biding their time. Okay. Andrew Stewart asks, will you please do a geology only live cast sometime soon? Sure. Why not? We can talk gemstones and natural phenomena and geophysics and whatever else. I like that. Manuel R. What up, Rock God? When do you think these evildoers will eventually and finally run out of ammo? If they can make fake shares, can't they just go on forever? I mean, kinda. The way the system's set up is that market makers can generate as many naked shares as they want, and then there's a specific clause in Reg Show that says they never have to cover those shares. They have to close those positions. That when it gets to T plus 35, it just kind of Etch a Sketch shakes it clear, and they start over, and those naked shares just go out there and keep being traded. So until someone like sticks a knife and twists, I don't think we're going to get much response out of the market makers, because they have the license to print money at this point. And we need some regulation and some sort of enforcement that can close that loophole, because a lot of these hedge funds, like Melvin, have received market maker status to do exactly that. Melvin is not using the market maker status to keep liquidity moving through the market. They receive market maker status so they can print shares and make money, and that's it. So the intentions behind this system is being completely abused by these hedge funds. So yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Master Bilbo, he says he's looking forward to my chat with Rocky Outcrop and Jamie. They messaged me. I haven't heard back. Hopefully maybe tomorrow we can do it. If not, it might be Friday the next time I have a chance, where our schedules can meet up. So I'm hoping to hear back from them. They might be asleep right now because I started the show too late. So if they pop in, hey guys, let's try to get a show together. So yeah. And Bruce Chappell asks, do you think that Meta could force some margin calls? I think it's very possible, because big institutions that lend out their shares, they want dividends, and borrowers of those shares are required to provide dividends. And if we don't see that, if they don't get that, they're required to margin call those who borrowed. And those margin calls can strip a lot of cash out of the hedge funds, which might trigger margin calls from brokerages whose customers, us, have not received those preferred shares of stock also. So I think that there's some real chance we could see Meta force some margin calls as a result. Metamaterial is kind of sitting like GameStop. They've got a pile of cash. They've got a really bright future. They've got tons of patents and products that they're going to be bringing to market in the near future. And if they get FDA approval on their non-invasive glucose monitor, then they've got access to like a $100 billion a year market that's all paid for with insurance money. So, we got a lot of diabetic Americans that could use not having to poke their fingers with stuff. Okay. Nick, I'm always going to butcher people's names. I'm so sorry. Nick Liamone. I heard that the FTDs won't be covered. So does that mean that the options contracts won't be paid out if that were to happen? No. So right now, those options contracts, what happens is, let's say you buy options, you get your 100 shares, you exercise those options. They go in the money and you exercise those 100 shares. what happens is the brokerage that the options house trades through, they look inside their brokerage and they find 100 shares that exist. And they take those shares out of their customers' accounts and they give them to your broker to put shares into your account. And the accounts from whom they took those shares, they get synthetics. They get those IOUs in their account. And supposedly, if it gets to T plus 13, the options house broker is required to margin call the option house if they haven't provided legit shares to put into those accounts from their brokerage that had to take them out of their customers' accounts. It's kind of a convoluted system. I'm not sure we have seen any margin calls as a result of that yet. That's where we should see some gamma squeeze happen, is if we get to that T plus 13, which should be happening soon, right? I mean, it should have happened already. We're at 7.6 and 6.18 was quite a while ago. Then we should have seen some forced buying at this point, but it looks like we're not seeing it so far. Duder Scooter, he says, Meta started today with the new CUSIP change. It's being today, which explains why we haven't seen the synthetic naked shares being immediately closed out. So it's today that CUSIP finally finalized for all the stocks across the board. That's good to know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Matty Vision hasn't gotten his dividend, those shares from Fidelity either. So. Oh man, we're up to, I just glanced up, we're up to $281 donating to the Stalking Victims Resource Center. So thank you so much. That is fantastic. A whole bunch of anonymous donors here. That's great, and I appreciate all of you for donating today. It just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside that a lot of you care enough to part with your hard-earned cash and donate to a worthy cause. Thank you. This is Neil21981. He says he's watching Charlie's vids and says that the reverse repo is collateral being rehypothecated so that it can then be injected in the market. They need the collateral to put up margin. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the way that a lot of this gets listed by his hedge funds, so that the banks are borrowing treasury bonds from the short hedge funds, and the banks are then selling those treasury bonds to the Federal Reserve for cash. The banks are hoping that they can find treasury bonds cheaper later, buy them back and return them to the hedge funds and pay off and close that position, kind of short selling the treasury market. The hedge funds do this weird accounting thing, which is really sketchy. When they lend their shares to the banks, they count it as, they still own the asset. They're counting it as like they've got synthetic treasury bonds basically in their accounts while they lent them to the banks. And then they also oftentimes list it as a sale. So they say they sold those treasury bonds to the banks. They did not sell the treasury bonds to the banks. The banks are borrowing them. So basically they list the assets twice in their filings, which I don't know how that's legal in any way, shape, or form. They list those assets twice in their filings, and then that boosts their assets under management in those filings, and it helps keep them from being margin called. It's totally sketchy. It probably should be illegal if it isn't already, but they're just getting away with it. So yeah, Neil, it's a messed up system that's going on, and yeah, sorry. Okay. Lewis Steely, does silver have a chance, or is it too manipulated? Silver hasn't moved much at all. I mean, since the beginning of the pandemic, silver's had a pretty steady price, floating in around $25 an ounce. If and when we see the market take a huge hit, whether it's from the corporate debt bubble, credit crunch due to this repo market, reverse repo market, or due to hedge funds getting margin called like crazy, or something else that I haven't foreseen yet, another mortgage crisis or whatever, you should expect to see silver take a big jump, as well as gold and other precious metal commodities. People like to put their money into metals because it's a solid asset that just sits there and you can't like chip away at it. And they'll hold that stuff for periods of time while there's a bunch of volatility in the market. We saw silver hit like $50 an ounce as a result of the subprime mortgage crisis in 08, 09. Gold will probably break 2,000 easily if we see a big market dip. So that's just the way that works. Let's see here. All right, now I got people telling me the audio sounds fine. Okay, good. Holy smokes, we're up to $400. That is incredible. Thank you so much. Neil, thank you for donating. I'm trying to scroll through here and thank some people. RN Blue, thank you so much. Got another anonymous donor. Deck P, thank you. Very generous. Thank you so much. Pale Hawaiian, there we go. I'm wearing the shirt, buddy. Got my Primo shirt on. Thank you for donating to the charity today. Hope I'm not missing anyone here. I can't even Cipher Beast. Hope I said that right. Thank you for donating. David Morgan, thank you. Andrew Stewart and Freddie Fredberger, thank you for donating. Thank you so much, everybody. It's awesome. I just learned that there's charity. I just saw it today that there was a charity thing, and I was like, oh, it's perfect. I would love to raise money for someone. That is fantastic. Okay. Anis Bukis, are there any minerals in the Baltic states? So you're up, what are you around? You're in Finland, Estonia, Latvia. Where are you, buddy? I don't know. I there has to be, because I mean the Vikings pillaged that place like crazy 1,000 years ago. So I would assume there's something that they're stealing. I'll have to look into that for you. I've not been into any Baltic nations yet, although as with everything, I want to go everywhere. I wonder if my sister lived in Latvia for a while. I should ask her if there's any minerals that she knows about. Yeah, my sister like lived all over the former Soviet states, so she's been everywhere, man. I'll have to ask her. Can you buy a mic from GameStop from pre? Yeah, well, I have this awesome blue mic that I can't connect to anything because they never gave me the screw that attaches it. So I'm waiting for that to arrive, and I can upgrade to some fancy microphone that people keep telling me I need to use. So there we go. All right. Okay. Christopher Funakoshi, how about mining computers? Are you talking about like taking old computers and grinding them up for all the precious metals? Yeah, I do that in my garage. I did a bunch this winter because COVID made everything shut down, but man, it was so cold out there. I'm hoping to do some more this summer. I've got a bunch of old computer chips that I want to grind up and see what I get out of them. Older computer chips have way more precious metal content than current computer chips. Current computer chips are built very cheaply compared to like 486, 386 computer chips from back in the day. They're also way bigger now than they were back then. But yeah. Bird Bear, fellow geologist. Yeah, let's go look at some faults together. Why not? I love looking at them. Did I tell you guys that when I was on my road trip, I got a ticket for weaving across the double yellow line because I was staring at some really faulted granite? And a fish and game dude from California pulled me over and was like, "You crossed the line." I was like, "I know." "What were you doing?" "Looking at rocks." "Why?" "Because I'm a geologist." "Well, don't." So I still haven't received the ticket in the mail. I'm waiting for that. All right. Okay. What's the best brand metal detector to buy for prospecting metals? MindLab metal detectors. Visit mindlab.com. I'm not sponsored by them, but if MindLab metal detectors wants to send me like what's the GPX 5000 or whatever is the most latest one, I will gladly take that awesome pulse induction metal detector. MindLab metal detectors are beyond amazing. I used to have a GP 3500, so it's a 15-year-old metal detector at this point, and it could detect a grain, like literally a grain of gold 30 inches below the surface. It was incredible. I just haven't done as much metal detecting recently, although I want to get into it more again and visit a bunch of places. There's good metal detectors out there that are more traditional systems. You've was it Lobo, Garrett, White's metal detectors. They all have pretty decent metal detectors that do an okay job, and they're a lot cheaper. But the MindLab metal detectors that are made in Australia are absolutely bonkers, and with how crazy they can detect really small amounts of gold. If you want to take up gold metal detecting, a great thing to do is you can go to like riverbeds that are downstream from gold producing regions, and you can look for gold that way. But you can also go to the tailing piles of old mines and old gold dredges that would churn through, because their classifying systems, there was so much more gold that was in fine grain and powder form that their classifying systems would throw off any large rocks. And those large rocks oftentimes had the big nuggets in them. So you can metal detect the tailing piles from these dredges and these old mines and find nuggets out of them. It's pretty cool. And right now, gold at being $1,700 to $2,000 an ounce, one nugget, it can be $2,000. That's not a bad find for a day. And if you invest in one of those big metal detectors, in a few weeks you might actually be able to recoup your investment. But if MindLab wants to send me a metal detector, I'm open to that for talking about how wonderful their product is. All right. Joshua Nudo, will the issuance of an NFT dividend set off the MOAS for GME? I think it's very likely, because what we'll find is the same weird doldrums that we're in with Metamaterial right now, where a lot of people won't be receiving the dividend they earned, or they're owed. So, that should force margin calls according to the rules that are in place. We aren't seeing them yet, but we should. Blue Hefner, why didn't the 6 to 18 gamma squeeze happen? Because no one bought any of the shares. But the reason why AMC's on the threshold list right now is because nobody covered or closed those positions from all those tens of millions of shares that went in the money as a result of all those options that were exercised. And we didn't see the gamma because none of the people who were supposed to go buy those shares to cover those positions did that. And that's why they're all on that threshold list right now. David Morgan says he's got a stalker as well. Yeah, so thank you for donating, David. I feel for you. It's a freaking exhausting nightmare to have to deal with these weirdos, these obsessive weirdos. Have you checked? This is from Jill N. Have you checked out Ghost Town Living and Brent, who bought the Cerro Gordo Ghost Town? Seems a place you might be interested in. I'll have to check that out. Let me put that on the list here. Cerro Gordo. Brent. Okay. That's on the list of things to see. Every time I write, I feel like you guys are writing with me because the camera wiggles back and forth. Okay. So Jonas got your preferred stock for your Metamaterials. Awesome. Well, good for you. At least someone got it. So we know it's being sent out there. Yeah. Okay. Mike Barr is asking how much is the Torch dividend. We don't know. That's why they announced they hadn't finished selling off all their assets yet. So that's why they were giving these preferred shares into the accounts of everyone who owned Torchlight prior to 6/24. that is, I think they're expecting in the next months or so to finally finish selling off all those assets. And when they get that money together, then they can issue the actual cash dividend to everyone. There was a rumor, a thing that got written about saying that the dividend was going to be bonkers, like $20. I was never able to verify that. They do have like 200,000 plus acres of land that they have rights to for drilling. Some of those mines that they did exploratory drills for were producing quite a bit of oil and natural gas. But they just got hammered so hard during the pandemic, the early days of the pandemic, that oil prices plummeted. There was no money for them to explore those wells, which is why they did this merger with Metamaterials. These sort of doing a SPAC merger where you acquire a company that trades in the U.S. so you become listed on a U.S. exchange isn't too unusual. If you read about the history of Torchlight, that before they were Torchlight, the original company that Torchlight purchased was like a home stripper pole company, something like that. So there's like a company that made stripper poles that could go into people's homes, and it was an exercise fad that was going on 10, 15 years ago. And so housewives could like learn to strip and get totally ripped abs, because we all know that women that can do pole dancing are just like so strong. And then the company saw financial trouble when that fad went under, and then Torchlight picked them up, and so they could get their shares traded on the NASDAQ that way. So it's just this kind of cannibalizing of listed companies, and it's a great way to get listed on a major exchange without having to do some sort of IPO offering that can be a pain in the butt. Because we saw what's that Chinese rideshare company, Diddy Poo or whatever, they did their IPO and the price just crashed, because then all of a sudden China's like, you can't have your app on our phones anymore. So you can run into things like that are totally harsh. So yeah, well, and people joining from Ireland, I got a couple of from Ireland that are staying up late. Thank you so much. And thank you again. We're up to $444 for the Stalking Resource Center. So thank you so much. That's fantastic. A dividend must be tradable, right? That's from Morty Smith. No, a dividend could be anything. So you can make the dividend a brown trout, and everyone gets a brown trout. Of course, short hedge funds can go out and buy a bunch of brown trouts to provide to their to the synthetic shareholders. But yeah, so there we go. Potamo, won't let you donate from your country. I'm so sorry. There might be restrictions for donations from, I don't know how this works. Sorry if you can't donate, but thank you for trying. How are synthetics covered? He asks, and isn't synthetic for synthetic or real share for synthetic? Okay, so to explain this, the synthetics get generated basically two ways. You have shares that are sold, or even options that are sold naked, and then a synthetic gets placed into an account as a result of that. You also have shares that are borrowed from people who own the stock. You borrow the share and sell it short, and when you borrow the shares, synthetics are put in the place in the account from which you borrowed. And so those are basically the two main ways synthetics exist out there. And the way you close that position is either you obtain a legit share and you can pay back your borrower, or you can pay back the synthetic share that you generated, or you can buy back synthetic that you issued and erase it from existence. So those are the two main ways that those synthetics can be closed out. Right now, we expect for a stock like GameStop that there's like a ratio that's 10 times greater of synthetics than there are of actual legit shares in existence. So if and when these margin calls finally happen, a whole bunch of buying will occur where they'll be taking legit shares and just throwing them into accounts to close out those synthetics, and a whole bunch of synthetics will be bought and just deleted from existence. Either way, they have to buy what we own, whether they're synthetic or real. They must buy those to close out those positions. So that's what we're sitting on. We're waiting for somebody to finally go in there and make it happen. Okay. Pale Hawaiian says he's also a vintage 1960s from Hawaii. Awesome. I'll be there. I'll be on the Big Island over Labor Day. So I don't know what island you're on, but I'll be on the Big Island for a week or two during Labor Day, the first couple weeks of September. Okay. Trying to look for questions. Peppered with Salt donated. Thank you so much. Resident Flea hasn't gotten their preferred shares from Metamaterial yet. Dr. Ian Johnson wants to know if he should get his pitchfork for not getting his preferred shares. Yeah. Just torches and pitchforks from all of us peasants demanding our preferred shares. Okay. Oh, people saying the audio is better. Okay, thank you. All right, I'm glad that the audio is better for you. Excellent. OS. Let's find some questions that haven't been answered yet. Oh, another person on Schwab hasn't gotten their preferred shares, so that seems to be happening a lot. Paul Ray is asking if I live in Chaz. No, I live in Bainbridge Island, a little bedroom community across the water from Seattle. We got to take a ferry to get into Seattle, and it's the greatest commute in the entire world. Please say hi. As Steve Horton says, please say hi to the apes in Great Britain. Sure. Hello, apes in Great Britain. Hi. Welcome. You're staying up late. Might be a while until I can go visit Great Britain again, but I hope to soon. Okay. It's hard for me to see the normal super chats pop up and nice and bright and colorful, and it helps me keep track of where I am on this chat feed here. But because I'm doing a charity thing, none of them are popping up today. Big play, 100,000 is possible. Okay, so people are saying that they think $100,000 a share for pretty much everything is possible. Justin's, you're on Vanguard now because you assume they aren't routing through Citadel. That's probably good. 40% of all retail trades get routed through Citadel's machines, high-frequency trading machines. Oh, man, I can't remember names. There's a company, a financial institution, Long Island. Oh, crud. But they just announced that they're going to have their high-frequency trading machines up and running to take a huge chunk out of Citadel's current market for retail trades. If someone can remember the name, the article popped up last week just before the holiday, and they're hoping to have those high-frequency trading machines ready to go before the end of the year, which to me might be another signal that there's big institutions that are ready for Citadel to bite the dust. So, yeah, Shoeless Kong, Houston, come to Nova Scotia with your Metamaterials dividend. Lobster rolls, fossils are jacked to the tits. I'd love to. I want to go to Halifax. My dad did when he retired a few years ago. He always wanted to do like really fast sailboat racing. He's done lots of sailboat racing in his life, and he never spends money on himself. And I basically was like, go do it. And there's some sort of race that was to the Bahamas, and they had to return a really fancy boat from the Bahamas to, not Bahamas, Bermuda to Halifax, a Volvo 60 race boat. And so the week after he retired, he flew to Bermuda and helped sail the Volvo 60 boat back to Halifax. And apparently it was the time of his life. The sailboats go so fast you have to wear goggles because you just can't see through the tears on your face from how fast you're going. So he got to go there. I want to go soon, someday, and go have my own. Wasn't Trailer Park Boys filmed there? I think, isn't that where they were filmed? Go visit the trailer park out there. Sean Busey asks, what is a credit crunch? How does it affect the average person? A credit crunch is when banks can't lend money because they don't have any. So imagine, you are a business that relies on short-term loans for certain, like you need to, I don't know, buy a tank for your brewery or put in new cash registers or something. You might take out a short-term loan to pay the vendor to provide that thing and then pay them back over the course of weeks or months. If there's no cash available from the bank to do that, you can't get the loan. You can't improve your infrastructure. If the banks can't provide money for car loans, or they can't provide money for home mortgages, or they can't provide money for big corporate debt that someone may need to build a new factory or anything like that, we start to get into a credit crunch as a result. We saw a credit crunch happen as a result of the 2008 financial crisis because these banks all of a sudden were left on the hook for trillions of dollars in bad mortgages. And the credit crunch resulted in the insolvency of a whole bunch of banks. A whole bunch of little banks went under. Various mortgage brokers went under. There's a mortgage broker that went under in my community called Carol Frame Mortgages. And she specialized in like multi-million-dollar houses, like big-time rich people estates. And she was their mortgage company was kind of like a big deal in that arena, but they bit the quick money of the subprime mortgages and started basically giving huge loans to people who did not have the liquidity or capital or investments to handle a $10 million house. And I think that put them under. Wachovia Bank went under. Wells Fargo bought Wachovia. Washington Mutual went under. Another local bank here, American Marine Bank, went under. Bank of Linwood. Which other ones in the Northwest went under? There were several of them that had gotten into these problems. There's, some of these banks, they might issue lines of credit to like developers. So if you are developing a housing development or a retail building of some kind, you might be doing it on spec, right? You're building 100 condo units. You might go to a bank and apply for a line of credit, and they may say, okay, here's $23 million of credit for you that you can draw on to pay the contractors to build this huge facility that you're doing. And what you're counting on is you draw from that credit as you're paying off subcontractors, you're doing soil swaps or putting infrastructure and plumbing and whatever. And that by the time you finish building, you will have started selling units or renting space, and cash will be coming in to begin closing out that loan you took out. Well, in 2008, a whole bunch of banks had issued these lines of credits to developers and other folks because home sales are going through the roof. The value of these of homes are growing 15% a year. Why wouldn't you give a line of credit to a developer? Because they can sell this stuff for so much more. And you begin construction and you're drawing on this line of credit, and all of a sudden the bank you have this line of credit with has no more money. They ran out because all of a sudden they have to pay off a whole bunch of bad debt that they had generated for various homes and whatnot, and they don't have any more money for you. So you might have been issued a $23 million line of credit and only taken out a few $100,000 at this point, but you can't take out any more. And you've purchased this property, you've cleared the land, you've started building slabs or whatever to do this stuff, and you're now bankrupt because you're counting on this line of credit to finish this development, and the development can't go through because the bank that issued the credit is gone. They don't exist. So we saw a lot of that happen in 2008, 2009 as a result of the credit crunch that happened with these banks. So, if you are doing a big project right now, you might want to not do a line of credit with a bank. You may want to just get a huge check from them right away if you can. You might not be allowed to, but you may have to be like, hey, I'm going to build this facility or these apartments or whatever. I want the $40 million for my credit now, so that you can just cash that sucker and have the money available. So you don't get stuck all of a sudden not being able to pay your vendors and everyone else. So I hope I answered what a credit crunch is. If you need more on that, I can go on further, I bet. But I hope I kind of explained the credit crunch there. Jess from Dax, wouldn't the feds want MOAS to happen now instead of next year so they can receive more capital gains? That's my theory. If you wait until next year for this to squeeze, then you lose out, what, on 2/3 of the potential tax windfall you'd get. So if it squeezes before then, they can get billions, tens of billions, or hundreds of billions of dollars, maybe even trillions of dollars in giant tax windfalls as a result of the 37% capital gains that you and I will be paying on our winnings. Okay. Stephen Latham asks, do I understand the dark pools as the exchange created for the big block purchase and sale and not to move the price? If so, AMC dark pool volume is stifling the price movement. Yes, it is. I think dark pools shouldn't exist. The reason, like if you read about the existence of dark pools and these off exchange trades, they say, oh, what if a company wants to buy 100 million shares of another company to absorb them? They shouldn't have to make that deal in the regular exchange because it'll affect the market price. Yeah, they should. If a company wants to buy 100 million shares of another company, they should have to go through the exchange to do it. They shouldn't be able to do some sort of side deal. The exchange exists for a reason. You and I don't have the opportunity to buy our shares off exchange. Why should anyone else? This needs to be an even playing field, and I think we need to get rid of the dark pools. Just get rid of them. Get rid of naked selling, get rid of the dark pools. Everyone should have to go through an exchange to trade stock. That's it. There should be no other excuse. No hedge fund, no institution should have any more power than a retail trader or any more access to tools than us. It should be fair across the board, regardless of how much capital you manage. So that's, yeah, you're correct, Stephen, in how the dark pools work to mute the price action of the share of stock. Let's see here. Mr. Jonata, yes, wondering if I know how much cash on hand the DC Insurance has. Do you think the Fed is ready for the MOAS? I don't think anybody is really ready for what would happen. I don't know the specifics of the amount of cash the DTC Insurance has on hand, because a lot of the new rules they pushed through was sort of removing the liability of some of their members from having to contribute to that. Essentially, the insurance was, if you're a member of this clearinghouse and the shit hits the fan, you all have to pay. Now, that was written not with the idea that the shit was going to hit the fan for like 50% of the market. So they're expecting like, oh, hedge fund here will make a bad bet, a hedge fund there will make a bad bet, and yeah, we can all cover it through our dues and obligations. What I think they realized is, with this constant squeezing that we're getting for all of these shares, for all these meme stock shares out there, is that it's a cancer that has spread through their members. And there are members of their organization that don't participate in this stuff, and there are lots of members that do. And you're now seeing these rules pass that can kind of build a wall around their good actors to protect them from this liability. So I don't really know what the insurance account has available for this. JP Morgan has been pulling out of the DTCC, and they're creating their own clearinghouse. Fidelity has their own clearinghouse. I'm sure there are a few other large brokerages that do, but the DTCC is kind of the biggest of the bunch. And JP Morgan pulling out is kind of a sign that they're like, oof, we don't want to be responsible for all of that. But I mean, JP Morgan may already have a bunch of issues of their own, because they lend margins to a whole bunch of funds that trade on that margin. So when those guys go belly up, they may, yeah. Okay. Get Real's asking, Houston, are you in the live chat or top of the box chat? I am somewhere in the middle, I think, right now, trying to scroll down and get all these questions if I can. So we're up to $469 raised for the Stalking Resources Center. So thank you so much. That is phenomenal. I am so stoked that we are we're an hour into this. We raised almost $500 for them. That's fantastic. You guys rock. Thank you. This is like the best thing you could be doing right now. Who cares about me? Donate to a good cause. Okay. Sean Marcos. Hey, Houston, I have a quick question. If Wall Street is so corrupt and such that market maker can do naked shorting without covering, what's the point of investing in Wall Street for retailers? That's an excellent question. Wall Street, what is the point of us giving you our money if you can just give us fake crap in return? I think that's a question that is being raised a lot this year by a lot of investors, especially foreign investment in the United States markets, that if what we're receiving for our money is fake counterfeit bullshit, why should we be investing our money into it? There needs to be some sort of enforcement in place to ensure our investments, because a fair and regulated market should be the goal of all markets. So Sean, yeah, that's if shenanigans go on and there isn't margin calls for all these hedge funds, because they are down hundreds of billions of dollars at this point collectively, then our market is a sham. Then the U.S. markets are a complete joke and can't be trusted. And I think a lot of foreign investment will pull out if that's the case. 40% of investment in U.S. markets are from foreign sources. So, they're going to find other places to put their money and other companies to invest their hard-earned wealth in than U.S. companies. Okay. Lockdown haircut. Hey Wade, why do you think international torch buyers late to the party seem to have received their preferred shares before other investors? I have no idea. I've had my shares since like February maybe in Torchlight. Whenever it was like 89 cents, that's when I bought. And I've received nothing from the preferred shares out of the results of that. So I don't know. Okay. Winston11381, do you think GameStop is still a good buy price? I mean, we see GameStop every few weeks rocket to $300 and more, and right now it dropped below 200 today, didn't it? I didn't see what it was at close. So I think it's safe to assume that we'll see another peak at least 300 before they drive it back down. So yeah, I mean, if you want to make 50% on your money, I bet it will go back up again. Who knows how many cycles it will do before it's over. I think the crypto dividend is an ends to a means to an end. Means to an end. That's the way the phrase goes. From that cycle keeping going. So if I had a bunch of cash on hand, I'd probably be buying more GameStop right now. Okay. Peter Joy, I think the stock may go up tomorrow or not. That's kind of that reminds me of when I was living in Hawaii. You'd watch the evening news, and they would have the 5-day forecast. The 5-day forecast every single day would have a sunshine, a cloud, a raindrop, and 85 degrees. Oh, tomorrow it might rain, and it'll be 85 degrees, and it'll be sunny at some point. That's just kind of how the tropics work. Yeah, it's one of those things is going to happen. That's kind of what happens when you try to predict exactly what's gonna happen this way. Okay. Man, there's lots of good. Julius in Miami, thank you so much for donating. That's awesome. Oh man, we broke $500. We're 544 raised for them. Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you. James Cam, do you think space will squeeze after the space flight? Man, oh yeah. So it was after close on Friday, right? That Richard Branson announced he was going to go up into space, and the price on Virgin Galactic just went through the roof. I wish I had some shares. Man, I know they've been shorted like crazy also, along with a lot of other stocks. So Richard Branson may have done a genius thing by announcing that he's going into space before Jeff Bezos this month. I'm still waiting to find out if my friend Sarah is going to get to go on that Jeff Bezos flight. She is the trainer for the rich people who will be going on those private space flights, and I think it'd be pretty awesome if she got to go on this one. I don't know if it's going to happen. She might be mums a word as to the other passengers on that flight. There's going to be 6 of them total. So there's Jeff Bezos, his brother, some rich guy who paid a lot of money for it, a woman who was supposed to be the first woman astronaut in space for the U.S. and didn't get to go. So that's 4. That's 4 of them. So there's 2 more spots available on that first flight. I don't know who's getting it, and I'm hoping my best buddy Sarah gets to go up there. I mean, just to say you went to space is pretty cool. Bragging point at parties. Yeah, I went to space. Like, man, I'm sure 100 years from now it won't be a big deal. I'll be going to space, but right now it's a big deal. Okay. Oh, sorry, my thing just reset again. I got to get back up to where I was in the questions. You guys type so much faster than I can answer questions. So, Shimmer, thank you so much for donation. Still a Toys R Us kid donated. Thank you for the donation. Another anonymous donation. Oh, there's Julius Miami. Okay, that's where I got caught there. And then there's the space question, and scrolling down. Charles K wants to know what's going to happen on 7/14 when the GME dividend gets released. I don't know if they're releasing on 7/14 or if they are announcing on 7/14. There is some rule about announcing. There's some buffer, like 10 days or something, before you can actually issue dividend. You have to announce what that dividend will be. So it might be that on 7/14 those coins are released into the accounts, the account of GameStop or their broker or whoever, and then they can say, we will release this crypto dividend on this date in the future. So there's that buffer time, as to avoid insider trading and things like that. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to be released on 7/14 or if they'll announce it then. I guess we're going to see. All right, what's in the boxes in the top shelf? Minerals and stuff are up there. Shall I go get them? Who was asking that question? Swap Neil. One sec. Yeah, I'm getting up and making noise. We have a box of sand. We've got some minerals and some costume jewelry. Let's see here. Trying not to bonk my microphone. Squeeze in here. There we go. All right. A lot of this stuff is stuff I haven't really gone through. Let's see here. What's in here? This is some Bixbyte. So this is in Matrix, some of the rarest gemstones in the world. This is essentially a red emerald, and gem quality stones are only found in one location in Utah. For every one of these gemstones found, there's 150,000 gem quality diamonds found. This is a beryl, so in the same family as emerald, aquamarine, morganite, stones like that. But it's red, and it's red from manganese, and it's found actually a stone's throw from the world's only resource for beryllium. So that I talked about them in my interview with the Gist years ago, or months ago. How long has this world been going on? The Metarion Corporation used to be Brush Wellman. They control like 99% of the world's beryllium, and it's mined like right next door to this stuff. There's also a whole bunch of cool champagne topaz that can be found there. And that champagne topaz, you got to keep it dark out of sunlight because it'll turn into like a clear crystal from the cool champagne color that it is. But this is some Bixbyte I pulled out from the Thomas Range in Utah. The Thomas Range and the Wawa Mountains just to the south, they're all part of the same rhyolitic volcanic eruption that happened, 20-30 million years ago in the ancient Lake Bonneville, and this stuff formed out of it. I've got some obsidian from Oregon, just pulled out of a road cut. here is a piece of chert. It's not quite opal, but it's really close to it that I found. I've got a huge chunk of spinel from Lithium, Vietnam, from a friend I made there. What else do I have in here? Some more spinels. Looks like all spinels in there. And there's some more Bixbite. And then a thing of some... Oh, here's some... here's this stuff that I melt down. It's like old gold jewelry, like 10 karat gold jewelry. This is 10 karat with some sort of like garnet. And another one that's 10 karat. I take this stuff and I melt it down and I use acids to separate out the silver and copper from them. And then use a different acid called aqua regia to then dissolve the gold. And then you can dump in some flux. The chemical names are leaving my brain. Some other chemicals that then get the gold to precipitate out. And I think this is sand. This is just a box of sand from the poo jar that's up right there. This is a box of sand from the poo jar area that might have some micro diamonds in it that I've never gone through. And that seems to be what's in those boxes. I've got rocks and things stashed all over the place. I have a big giant obsidian. It's like this big downstairs that people always want to handle and they slice their hands open on it. So there you go. There's a distraction as to what's in those boxes that are on my shelf. Anonymous donated $100. Thank you, man. That's fantastic. Whoever did that, thank you so much. We're up to $544 on that. This is fantastic. This is, again, like I am just getting the warm and fuzzies from all of you. This is so cool. Okay, so there's the box question. Did you guys know diarrhea coin is real? Post Moas, I'm buying all of it. I love a good poo joke, especially when it has to do with a poo joke that's in finances. Fantastic. Okay. Unnamed Chaos is asking about Emrin. Yeah, so Emrin is one people have been asking about. Their stock price has gone through the roof, and it's like 35 times their float is trading in one day. And I think that's a symbol of how many naked shares are out there. Yeah. Princess asks, victims of stalking, what's this about? Well, Princess, I am a victim of a stalker. Dude's been stalking me for 4 years, and he's a serial stalker. He moves from like one victim to the next. 4 years ago, I banned him from a community Facebook group for stalking and harassing a very treasured member of our community who got the Japanese internment memorial built on our island, because Bainbridge Island was the first place the Japanese were taken from their homes and sent off to these internment camps out in the desert at the beginning of World War II. And they deserved a memorial. They lost their homes and farms and livelihoods as a result of that executive action, and a memorial was an appropriate national monument to be built. And the man who stalks me stalked the founder of that monument, and I had banned him from this Facebook group, which resulted in him hounding me every day. So if you respond to any tweet I make on Twitter or on Reddit or Facebook, he will probably contact you and tell you that I'm a loser and a liar and live with my mom and whatever else he wants to put on there, and it's just a pain in the ass. So I'm asking everyone to donate to the Stalking Victims Resource Center today, instead of giving me super chats, to donate to this cause and help people who have to deal with stalkers. The stalkers are absolutely exhausting. So yes, that's what I'm asking today, is that people donate to that, and they've done a fantastic job. We're an hour and 14 minutes in, and $544 has been raised, and that's just incredible. Thank you so much, everybody. Diarrhea coin USB, I'm in. I would love to see like a tweet a year from now of Elon announcing you can buy a Tesla with a diarrhea coin. Someone sent me the link to the Chico crypto video, and this is from Tone Chaser. Somebody sent me the link to the crypto video about the GME NFT coin like 5 minutes before I went live, so I haven't had a chance to see it yet. But I'm going to. I'm going to take a look at it. Apparently, it's some good due diligence research there. Okay. Paul Ray asks, is Chaz as cool as it seems on TV? I had some friends that went up there and did some interviews for their news organizations, and you know, I think it was more a bunch of hippies that didn't quite figure out what their goal was. There's awesome art that came out of there for sure, but I'm not sure it quite did exactly what they intended for it to do, other than just be kind of protest site. I didn't get a chance to visit it myself, but from the people I know that went there, it was, you know, they went around, asked people questions, chit-chatted. I find it weird, like, we had millions of people, hundreds of millions of people protesting police abuse, and the police were there not as crowd control, but as counter protesters. And I don't know, I think if the police cared about protecting property, wouldn't you like line the streets with officers to keep people from throwing trash cans through windows and stuff, instead of like making a barrier to confront all these people protesting your actions? I don't know. To get into like the political aspects of that is beyond my capacity right now, but I think everyone just wanted confrontation because it was cathartic for them at this point. And you know, I retweeted a thing today about asset forfeiture, civil asset forfeiture by police organizations, and it's crazy. Like they can just take your money from you and then charge you to get your money back. That doesn't seem right at all. That seems like theft. More wealth is taken from civil asset forfeiture by law enforcement than by burglary in the United States, actual theft. That's just a freaking strange number. There's stories about people that are driving through certain counties in Texas, and those people get pulled over by the police and all their wealth taken from them. It happens a lot to like migrant workers who are going from one farm field in one state to another farm field depending on the harvesting season, and all of their money gets taken from them by some, like, you know, sheriff's deputy, and that person has no recourse to get their money back, because in order to get their money back they have to pay some sort of filing fee that's exorbitant, and then they also have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that money didn't come from criminal activity. And if you are an under the table farm worker who's picking lettuce for a few dollars an hour, what recourse do you have to prove that it didn't come from a criminal enterprise when you getting paid probably was, you know, somewhat nefarious act by the farmer in general? I'm getting stuck on a tangent again. I'm sorry. I'll try to get back on track here. But yeah, Chaz. That was, if for those who don't know, is the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. It also was called like CHOP or something, Capitol Hill something or other. But yeah, so those of you elsewhere in the world who have no idea what I'm talking about, it was the protests in Seattle last summer of the George Floyd murder. They took over a portion of the city and were like, no cops allowed. And then they made a lot of art. Okay. All right. By hydrometallurgy, you can tell the chat about this cool thing, what it can do, sewers, industrial waste and stuff. Yeah. So there's a cool thing. All right. So a few years ago in Hokkaido, Japan, where a whole bunch of gold plating happens for electronics manufacturing. So you've got computer chips and motherboards and other things for all these robots and other stuff that are produced in Japanese high-tech companies. To gold plate, you take gold and you suspend it in water at one end. You put the thing you want divided at the other, and then you run a charge through the water. So it goes positive and negative. And what ends up happening is that atoms of gold bleed off of that gold source you have and end up bonding to the surface of the metal you're trying to plate. Well, at the end of the day, that water goes into the drain and gets treated at a sewer plant. And an experiment was done. So this particular sewer plant in Japan, they would take the solid waste that was treated from their facility and they would then burn it for electricity. So they burn it as a fuel source to power boilers, and it would generate electricity for the population, local population. And then someone was like, hey, can I mine that poo? So they mined the fly ash, the ash that was generated that was treated at the sewer plant, burned at the power plant, and then this ash was left over. They took that ash and they got 15 pounds of gold per ton of burned poo as a result of originally this gold plating process. And 15 pounds of gold, that's 15 times 1,250, 140 ounces of gold, right? Troy ounces of gold at $2,000 an ounce. So you're looking at $280,000 in gold for every 2,000 pounds of burnt poop out of one of these places. That is incredible. And since then, other high-tech areas that have gold plating processes are going on, are discovering like, hey, if we treat our sewage, we can mine the poo for gold and get gold out of it. That's pretty rad. I think it's amazing. I also think, I'd like to see mining of dirt on the roads, like street sweepers coming along, because we got tons of platinum and palladium and rhodium that comes out of catalytic converters in cars as they drive on the road. I think you can mine road sweepers for these precious heavy metals. And why not? Why not get the plastics and contaminants and heavy metals out of this material rather than dumping it into landfills like we have been? So yeah, Christopher Sawchuk, excellent. We should do a show on just mining poo alone. Let's see here. A lot of people asking what the torch dividend is. I don't know what the torch dividend is. All I know is that they're going to be offering preferred shares. They're going to be placeholders until they finish selling their assets and can finally give us those dividends. Okay. Jimmy D asks, any good prospecting, metal detecting, etc. in Utah? Yeah, a lot. You have to go to volcanic mountains for gold. So like the Henry Mountains are a great place. Boulder Mountain, up and around where Park City was a former mining town. There's tons of gold up there. You got the Bingham mine. That whole region just kind of south and west of Salt Lake City. The Bingham mine's like the largest hole in the ground, and it's a copper mine that also has produced like billions of dollars in gold as a byproduct of their copper production. But that whole mountain range, I can't remember the name of the mountain range the Bingham mine is in, but there are tons of spots to prospect for gold. Although you may want to look and see if there's any active claims, because there's probably a lot of active claims in that area. Gemstones in Utah, there's the Bixbyte that I showed from my box, and you can get Bixbyte and Bixbyite, which are these cool cubic minerals. They're found by this prospector named Maynard Bixby, who was like a lawyer in Pennsylvania and then moved west to prospect and became obsessed with minerals and made all these like first discoveries in central western Utah. There's topaz there. You can go to Sunstone Knoll, which is where's Sunstone Knoll? It's like south of Delta, Utah. And it's this weird little basalt volcanic nub that popped up in the ancient Lake Bonneville. And the way it cooled is it became this basalt pegmatite where these really cool sunstones came out of. And I don't know if I have any of these sunstones here. I have a big bag of them somewhere. You can just go out and each one's worth $1. And so as long as you can sit on the ground and pick these things up, you're making dollars and dollars and dollars. I have thousands of carats of them somewhere in like Ziploc bags. I don't know where I have them. They might be in the garage. But they're really cool little stones, and they crack out of the basalt and fall onto the salt flat of that's there. And if you sit with the sun at an angle, you can see them all glint like broken glass from a car accident on the road. And every single one of those little glinting things is going to be a cool little yellow sunstone. And they vary in size. You can get little teeny tiny ones, you can get bigger ones. Some of the rock shops in and around Delta will sell the bigger ones they find for a couple of dollars to tourists and whatnot. But you can just go to Sunstone Knoll, and the claim is owned by somebody, and there's a little mailbox, and they ask you to open the mailbox and like just write as kind of a guest book of who's been there to mine the claim. You just close the mailbox right back up. It's also a cool little spot to camp because the stars are beautiful there, and you can drive up right on the little basalt knoll, and you have this view of the salt flat, and the stars are just amazing. So I recommend going there. There's also really cool fossil spots in Utah. In Boulder, Utah, where my brother lives, there's a place, it was like Dead Horse Canyon or something. It's off the Burr Trail. And I found a petrified tree. And I don't know how to describe it. The rounds were so large and so heavy because they're so full of metal that I couldn't move them. But imagine you have an ancient tree trunk, and maybe it falls over and gets covered with material and petrified. Well, the soil's eroded at different rates, and so this ancient giant tree trunk, it calved into various like discs, and then sunk through a sinkhole and ended up spread through different layers of rock. I don't know how to describe this thing. And then these really cool green crystals, which to this day I haven't identified. I think they might be a calcite of some kind. The neon green crystals adhered to this giant metal-filled tree trunk round, and they were incredible. I need to go back there just to get a giant crane, lift one of these things so I can study it. There's all sorts of cool stuff out in the desert. You got uranium out there, tons of uranium. The Escalante Wilderness area was declared free, like no mining, no prospecting, and the Trump organization removed protections for like hundreds of thousands of acres of this area. And people were saying, "Oh, they're gonna do oil drilling." They weren't doing oil drilling. It was for uranium mining. There's tons of reserves of yellow cake uranium in these thin bands through all of Escalante and the area in and around Bryce Canyon and Capitol Reef National Park. You can just pull the yellow cake uranium like right out of the layers of rock. So there's lots of uranium there. What else is in Utah? Salt. There's a lot of salt to mine in Utah. Hope that answers enough questions. Get you started. Get a rock hounding book of Utah, one of these things. This is a William Capel book. I have a couple of others. Gem Trails of Utah by James Mitchell is a good one. A little thicker, a little more in depth. I have this one here. These are all good places to start if you get like the Gem Trails books or similar rock hounding books. And once you start looking at these areas, you know, there might be official rock hounding sites that might be state parks or similar, like the what do they call it, Topaz Cove. It's in the Thompson Mountains where you can find the Bixbite and Topaz. There's this it's like BLM camping area that's just for prospecting, and people aren't allowed to set up mineral claims. So everyone's allowed to go mining there. No mineral claims are allowed, and you can go crack rocks. And a great way to get those crystals is you look for like a scraggly bush growing out of the side of the hill, and you pull the bush out. You can reach inside and pull out cool topaz and bixbite crystals, and you just take the root ball and stick it right back in. The tree will keep growing, so you don't destroy the environment, because the trees will grow in the pockets where these crystals have formed. So it's a great way to mine that way. And also look for ant hills. Ant hill mining is a great source, because the ants will pull out all the crystals out of the earth because they're in their way, and then they'll line their ant hill with those gems, and you can just pull the gems right off the top. If they're red ants and they're kind of angry, you can have a hard time doing that, but most ants don't care if you're pulling the crystals off, as long as you aren't squishing them. So, just from Dax, do we know which specific prime broker or bank would margin call Citadel? I don't. I have no idea who their margins are through. I don't know if that stuff is stuff even revealed in their filings as to what banks and whose money they use for those margins. I don't know. I honestly don't know. If someone has that information, pop it in there. Okay. Oh, we got some people from New Zealand listening in the morning here. So, yeah. I'm so far behind in my my chat stream here. I got when you get me talking about rocks, I'll spend 10 minutes just blabbing and not getting the rest of the questions here. People want 20 pounds of perch. I'll take a fish. I'll take a fish dividend. I'd smoke that sucker. I got a little smoker in the garage. Okay. Stocks 808. Got a place to stay on Kauai if I make it over. Heck yeah, man. Kauai's my favorite island. I wish University of Hawaii Hilo was on Kauai. I loved it there. I loved it. I had such a great time. It was like even a slower pace than the Big Island, which is a pretty slow pace. Perfect for me. Just problem is that the telescopes aren't on Kauai. Okay. James Kim asking, out of all the major shorted stocks, which one will cause MOAS? Greeting from Great Britain. I don't know. If the trickery that Metamaterials and Torchlight have done with their preferred shares for the Torchlight dividend and the CUSIP change of their merger, they might trigger some sort of margin call. If GameStop gets success with their crypto dividend on the 14th or after, they might get success with their getting margin calls. I have no idea who's going to be first. I thought back in at the end of May, beginning of June, the AMC might be the one that triggers it because they have 500 million legit shares trading out there, and the price was just climbing at astronomical rates. But they managed to like quell that, and it's been just kind of trading sideways ever since. Fart Simpson says he hopes Rainn Wilson plays me in the movie. Well, I'd be okay with that because Rainn's also a guy from Seattle. So, hey Rainn, if you're out there. Yeah. Did my dog enjoy the watermelon? She ate so much watermelon they got to the point where I tried to give her more and she was like, ugh, cannot. So she ate like an entire half watermelon herself at 4th of July yesterday. Okay. Jimmy Diaz, ever been to Whidbey? My fam lived there. Yeah, I used to own land on Whidbey. I bought a piece of property during the financial crisis in 2008 at auction, and I bought it sight unseen because it was at this auction. I got it for like $1,400, and then went up to Whidbey to go scope it out, and it was on a slope, and on that slope all the trees had this big bend in their trunks, and I was like, uh-oh, slope creep. So if you see property and you see these trees with these big bends in their trunks, that means the slope is slowly moving down, creeping downhill from gravity, and the trees are desperately trying to remain upright. And it's a sign that it's not the best place to build a house. So I was like, oh crap, I need to sell this land, but no one's going to buy it while the market is in the dumps. And so I sat on this land for like 5 years, and then one day, I got a phone call from my best friend, and he's like, hey, you still have that land in Whidbey? I said, yeah. He's like, is it on Driftwood Way? I said, yep. He said, turn on the news. So I turned on the news, and the land I had bought at auction for $1,400 had become part of the largest landslide since Mount St. Helens had erupted. And just whole thing just slid out into the Puget Sound and into Admiralty Inlet. And yeah, my land wasn't going to be useful for anything anymore. So I donated the deed to some conservatory group and got a tax write-off, and that's my Whidbey Island story. Also, my family used to do race week on our crappy little sailboat up there, up in Penn Cove every year. Camping in Oak Harbor and then sail in Penn Cove, where our famous Penn Cove mussels come from. And what was it, 2004? We were sailing in there, and we watched this private jet fly low over our heads and then crash land in Penn Cove right as we were sailing. So all the boats like turned and went to go rescue these people, and it was a man, his wife, and their dog. And the plane ended up in like shallow water, and all three of them got rescued by people sailing that day. We were not a fast enough boat to get there first. Some of those trimarans got there first and rescued them. But man, to this day, the only plane crash I've ever seen, so that was pretty exciting. Where can I find the beer brand Moas? Oh, maybe I'll buy some Primo beer from Hawaii to celebrate the Moas. Okay. Master Bilbo is talking about Brent of Cerro Gordo. I have to look that up. I got it written down here, so I'm gonna look him up after my thing here. Israel Rodriguez came to Bainbridge. Welcome to Bainbridge. Back in April. Come back soon. The weather is fantastic here right now. But don't tell people from California. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Trying to find. Looks like the mods are doing their job and deleting quite a few things here. I'm scrolling through like deleted message, deleted message, deleted message. Okay. Man, so many deleted messages. Thank you so much for my volunteer moderators for handling this. I'm going through there. AMC equals Orville Redenbacher. Man, okay, I'm looking for questions. Sorry. Another donation. Thank you so much. Scrolling through here. Again, if anyone's compelled to do super chats today, all the money that you send goes to the National Crime Victims, National Center for Crime Victims and their Stalking Resource Center. So please donate, and it all goes to them. We may have maxed you guys out today, but I thank you so much for sending us so far $544 to a really great cause. I hope to do more things like this in the future, apes helping apes. That's the way it goes. Sheep, duck, and cow. Thank you so much for donating. Okay. I may have missed some questions here. I'm so sorry if I've scrolled past them. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm about 20 minutes behind on the list here, trying to catch up to where current questions are. Ab Rogers asking, will the economy crash if AMC and GME hit 100,000 or a million? I think it would have some rather big impacts on the economy. Let's say that there's a billion shares out there, right? A billion shares that need to be covered of just one stock. And that stock, that our fictitious hypothetical stock, goes to $100,000. That's what, $10 trillion that need to be covered for those billion shares that are out there? $10 trillion is like 70% of the entire U.S. economy. So trying to find enough cash to cover that will be a quandary, which means these hedge funds that now need to pay $100,000 a share, they're going to get liquidated of all their assets. And those assets are going to get dumped onto the market. They're either going to get dumped directly on the market and sold to whoever can buy them, or there's going to be some sort of bidding process between healthy funds trying to buy the assets of these companies, and that cash is going to be used to pay for us. But they don't have enough cash to pay for all this stuff. That's why they're being margin called. So the next step is the banks will have to get liquidated of all their cash assets to help pay for us. But they don't have enough cash to pay $10 trillion in one go for this one stock that needs to be covered. So then the clearinghouses will, and the brokerages, and those guys will then be on the hook, and they'll have to pay what they can. But they won't have enough cash on hand to do it. And if the banks get liquidated and we get a credit crunch as a result, then it's up to the Federal Reserve to basically print money, dump liquidity into the banks to keep the economy moving. So it's a very real possibility that the MOAS can cause a whole bunch of credit problems across the board for all sorts of institutions. And so the economy could be greatly affected by it. We have to remember also that the stock market is not the economy, but they both are fairly ingrained with each other because there's a lot of speculation that goes on in the stock market, a lot of risk involved, And if that risk results in a capital dry up or capital freeze across the board, and all of a sudden 4 to 10 million weirdos like us are filthy, filthy rich as a result, it may take a while for all this to shake out. So I wouldn't doubt that the economy could feel a crash if the MOAS hits. But again, the MOAS might hit as a result of a credit crunch from corporate debt or from credit crunch from the reverse repo market. Lots of things can cause that to happen. Okay. Ryan Russell, my exit strategy is to cash out then exit the country. I've been looking at, there's places in Spain, Greece, Italy, Japan, these tiny little towns where they're selling homes for $1, and being someone that can now earn an income from YouTube, and I can do that from anywhere, like maybe I'll look at a little village in Italy or something and go do videos from there. Monkey Butt would love Italy. She'd have a great time, wouldn't you, buddy? She doesn't know what's going on. But yeah, look at me. You'd love it. Maybe Spain. I don't know. I have a friend in Spain right now, in Galicia, and she loves it. Cleo Coma asking, hey, you see any good gold panning or rare earth search activities to take my family near Bainbridge or Western Washington? Not too much in Western Washington because we're all glacial till. So several times over the past several million years, these huge glaciers came out of Canada and just ground everything up to a fine powder. You have some boulders and stuff left behind. So in the Puget Sound, there's not too much to look at. In the mountains, in the Olympics, and in the Cascades, there are, because mountain ranges are where the interesting geologic things happen to make mineralization. But most of the Olympics are off. It's a national park, so you can't do most of the good mineral hunting there. There is, like in the Quileute River and Quinault River and Dozy Wallops, Bogachil. There's some rivers systems north at the Skokomish River. You can find gold in those, but more of the mineral hunting will be in the Cascade Mountains. There was a site for amethyst and smoky quartz just west of the Alpental ski area on Anderson Creek. So if you go up I-90 out of Seattle as going into the Cascade Mountains, there's an exit just before you get to Snoqualmie Pass, and there's a trail called Anderson Creek Trail. And if you dig under the tree roots, there's a big slope that goes up from the trail. It's about a mile or so from where you park your car. You dig under the tree roots, you can get lots of really cool quartz crystals out of there. And in the 1940s, Tiffany's blew up that whole mountainside to get a bunch of amethyst out of it for their gem operations. Now it's just national forest, and you can go dig. Along, I think it's the North Fork of the Snoqualmie, there's been a precious opal found in the canyon walls. Although it's really remote and almost impossible to hike back there, you can find opal there. Then you have to get to eastern Washington and central Washington to find petrified wood, which is the official gemstone of Washington. But not too much to find in western Washington. You'll find quartz in places. But to get the really cool stuff, you got to go in the Okanagan, which is much more northeast Washington. And you can get corundum, sapphires, and rubies in places, lots of gold. There's marble, so there's crystallized stuff that you'll find in marble and regions up there. There's like cool caves and stuff in the Okanagan. Okanagan's a really interesting, sparsely populated area, and a lot of it is just wilderness, and grizzly bears and wolverines and stuff up there. So... you're not going to find too much. Well, you got agates. You have tons of agates on the beaches here. So those are things you can find. You can walk the beaches and look for the little yellow and orange and red agates. So I guess that's the gemstone that's around here. Okay. All right, we're up to 564. Thank you, Anonymous, for donating another $20. That's fantastic. I'm going to go till 5 o'clock, so because then I got to go get dinner. I've got almost out of water here also. So another 15 minutes of me yakking at all of you. And again, I want to thank you for donating to the charity today. It's fantastic. Thank you so much. And the ads for the day, if anyone watches this show later, the ads I think also go to, the ad revenue goes to the Stalking Resource Center as well. So, I want Korean tacos. William Morgan, don't do that to me. I can't get any Korean tacos up here. I love them. I also love fish tacos. Oh, seafood tacos in general are just the best. Okay. Everyone's talking about their exit strategies for where capital gains taxes are. Yeah. Okay, going to real estate, that's also a solid thing. I love auctions. I love going to auctions. If you want real estate and you want to get it cheap and you got cash on hand, you go to the courthouse auctions for foreclosed properties and abandoned properties. You get that stuff for a song. There was it the Mastros? They're essentially this real estate Ponzi scheme couple that went under when the financial crisis happened, and the wife put on a whole bunch of really expensive jewelry and they fled to France. So that jewelry is worth millions, and they fled all their investors and their creditors and went to go live in France. And I think it was their home, their $10 million Medina home. Medina is like where Bill Gates lives. This huge waterfront mansion went up for auction during the financial crisis and sold for $200,000. So if we get ourselves a big giant financial crisis where a bunch of sketchy swindlers have to flee and abandon their homes, you might be able to get some screaming deals at those courthouse step auctions for those places. You know, I mean, in general, you have to have cash on hand that day. So you can't be like, I'll pay tomorrow. Like, you got to pay them that afternoon for that property, else it goes up for auction again like the next Friday. But you can buy homes. You can buy a $500,000 home for like $100,000 or less, depending on who shows up. And if the auction happens to be like a cold, rainy November morning, and it's on the courthouse steps, there might not be many people willing to like wake up early and go stand in the rain to try and buy some piece of property. So, it's a great way to get real estate, is to do that. So I plan on, once I have the cash, to do lots of that. There's also cool websites, bidforassets.com. Bid4Assets, they have bank-owned property that will sell for like whatever's owed on the deed. And you also have property that goes up for like $1 no reserve. And a while ago, you could have bought almost the whole of the Detroit metro area for $1 on that website. They also have contracts for tax foreclosures for all sorts of counties across, especially the western United States, in Washington and California and Hawaii. You can buy these properties, and a lot of times they're homes, for pennies, whatever the taxes are owed. So if someone hasn't paid taxes for 3 years and the total bill is like $15,000, that's the starting bid for the home. So Bid4Assets is a great way to pick up properties at auction also. I'm telling you all this, and now I'm going to be competing against all of you for these properties. I shouldn't have said that. But, I want you guys to get your wins too. Hey, got someone from Romania. Oh, right on. Okay. Random space question. If we ever start, it's from Sam. Oh, it's my cousin Sam. Hi, Sam. If we ever start asteroid mining, will we have to go out to the asteroid belt, or are there asteroids with closer orbits to Earth? Yeah, there's a cool website the Planetary Resources made years ago called asterrank.com. I'll put this actually right here. asterrank.com. I think that's it. And they map all these near-Earth asteroids. And so the idea is, rather than going all the way to the asteroid belt, you wait for one of these asteroids to come near Earth, and you either set up a base on the asteroid as it does near-Earth orbits, or you capture it and get it into Earth's orbit and do the mining that way. I'm a little bit sketchy about them capturing the asteroid and getting into Earth's orbit, because if somebody forgets to carry a 1, they could wipe out the whole of human civilization in one fell swoop and destroy the Earth. So I'm sure there's people who are more confident in their mathematical calculations than I am that are working on those things. The sci-fi aspect of it is to create an anchored space elevator. So you make this giant nanocarbon tube tether that goes out like 30,000 miles from the equator. And so as the Earth rotates, this giant band of ribbon rotates at 30,000 miles out, and you put an anchor at the end of it. And you run an elevator that basically has wheels that pinch the ribbon and can go up and down. So it might take days or weeks to move material up and down this thing, but you don't have to use a rocket propulsion to do it. and you can capture your asteroid or get your mined material and put it at this anchor point that's 30,000 miles out, basically in geostationary orbit around the equator, and you can move this material up and down that ribbon. And for the most part, you don't have too much lateral winds at the equator. Most of the air is always rising, so you don't have to worry about like hurricanes and stuff hitting your anchor point. You might have to worry about terrorists, but it's a sci-fi dream to get one of these space elevators going. And there was a company a few years ago in Boston, some material sciences company, that has started just printing or producing thousands of miles of continuous nanotube carbon ribbon that could be used in this process. And it's all speculation. Like they're like, well, if we just produce a couple million miles of this ribbon, we can make enough ribbon for one of these space elevators. I mean, that's quite the spec to run on. But yeah, I think one or the other might happen. It's probably going to be near Earth asteroid SAM that we mine for all these metals. Okay. Oh yeah, Bossy's talking about how companies have to announce changes in dividends at least 10 days prior to the issue. Yeah, I think it's what it was, 10 days. So thank you for clarifying that. Courtney DeGeorgie, did I say your name? Says, hi Houston. Hi Courtney. Come to California, I'll take you for fish tacos. You got it. I think the best thing about becoming YouTube famous is that everyone's like, come to a restaurant, I'll cook for you, whatever. I can do a road trip now, and I don't think I have to pay for food. I will take it. I will eat whatever you give me. I will gladly. Thank you so much. Thank you for all the people. I'm looking forward. I've got the Jamaican curry coming. Ooh, I'm so excited for that. Make myself some like Jamaican curry goat. Oh, nom 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 nom. Okay. Oh yeah, something else. Yeah, check those auction sites. There's lots of cool stuff. Auction.com also will do lots of bank foreclosures, but they do a lot. You'll see it pop up like, oh sweet, 5 days until this auction, all of a sudden disappears, because what happens is if the tax debt gets paid, then it gets removed from the auction site. So there might be real estate investors who approach some old lady that hasn't been paying her taxes, like, hey old lady, we'll pay your taxes if we can own your home after you die. And they do things like that. So a lot of times they won't make it to auction that way. But mostly on bid for assets, they stay on there. Not too many of them get removed from those auctions, because it's kind of like there's 10 days until this auction happens, and there's not enough time for people to get the capital together to finish paying for those taxes. This is Waz Pedroz. I think I say your name right. Pedroz. Hey Houston, if you would have to choose, do you think the SEC is just working behind closed doors and getting ready to go after the hedgies, or is SEC and hedge funds BFFs? Man, my heart hopes that they are actually doing their job and getting ready to enforce these guys and doing their investigations. My mind is telling me that it's very hard for the SEC to actually enforce against these big players because of the legal power the big players can afford and the lack of manpower and budgeting inside the SEC to do this stuff. The SEC oftentimes doesn't step in when the big boys are involved until other big boys have been really hurt financially as a result. So, yeah. Okay. Motley Fool is from Mr. Snotty. Worst best stocks to buy according to Motley Fool: INO, COS, Sava, AMC, and GME. So those are all companies that have been super shorted, right? But then somebody says Motley Fool is owned by a hedge fund. So yeah, there's, I don't know. All right. Grace Foundation, if the moon gets mined, will we have to replace the material taken with material from Earth to keep the tide moving at the same rate and depth? No. So the amount of material that we taken off the moon will be negligible. It really won't make a difference as to how the moon Earth orbit works. What's happening is, well, all right, let's go back. Let's go back in time. So remember last show I was talking to somebody about why you get those weird striations, those like weird, I don't know, they kind of like make weird little right angles when you thin section an iron meteorite, and that was a result of it being in the core of a former planetoid that got blown apart. So that metal core got blown apart and ended up in space. The way the moon is supposed to have formed is the way we think it formed was a Mars-sized planet smacked into proto-Earth. So Earth was probably a molten goo ball and probably had essentially differentiated at that time. So the light stuff was on the outside, the heavy stuff was on the inside. And this large Mars-sized planet smacked into the Earth, and a whole bunch of splatter left the Earth's surface and ended up in orbit and coalesced. And that happened perhaps 4+ billion years ago. And the moon formed from that material. Now we think that happened because the moon's density is the same density as the crust of the Earth, which is light. It's like 4 grams per cubic centimeter. And the moon has a very small molten metal core in the center of it, and a lot of light, fluffy, rocky material, basalt, things like that make up the majority of the moon. Now, the moon formed very close to Earth. So when the moon formed, they weren't very far apart from each other. And the moon was orbiting the Earth and probably causing lava tides at the time because the Earth was molten, the moon was molten, and they're probably causing tides of lava as they went around. Well, these tides, whether they're lava or they're liquid water as we have today, those tides work as sort of like a drag on the Earth's rotation. So as the Earth's rotation slows down, the tides end up kind of slingshotting the moon faster and faster, pushing it to a higher and higher orbit. So as the moon gets further and further away, the tides become weaker and weaker, but the moon still continues to get slingshot. And the moon drifts from the Earth, a few centimeters a year further away in its orbit, and the tides get smaller, and the Earth's rotation slows down ever so slightly over that course of time. And there might become a point of time where the moon gets so far away that the Earth's rotation has slowed so much and the tides are so small that it's kind of negligible. But until then, the moon is still getting slungshot by the tides and drifting further away. And we've got really cool stuff to prove this. The Apollo astronauts left these little mirrors on the surface of the moon back in the 70s. And there's a giant laser on Haleakala on Maui that every once in a while they take out and they shoot this laser to the moon. It takes 30 seconds for it to hit the moon and 30 seconds for it to come back. And by the time this beam of this incredibly powerful, like 250,000 kilowatt laser hits the moon, the beam goes from a tight beam to it's like several kilometers in size. And they've got these little light gatherers that, maybe it's 10 to the 50th photons are beamed to the moon, and they get like 6 of them back. And the amount of time it takes for those photons to hit those little mirrors that the Apollo astronauts left and come back, they can measure how far away the moon has drifted since those mirrors were put down on the lunar surface. So, no, mining the moon I don't think will have any effect upon how the orbits happen between the Earth and moon and the tides. So I wouldn't worry about it, Grace Foundation. The Earth alone gets like 2,000 tons of dust from space landing in our atmosphere every day from tails of comets and other detritus that's just floating through space. And that doesn't really seem to have much of an effect on the Earth-Moon relationship. So there you go. All right. Up until this point, thought the moon was a giant egg of a space dragon. All right, I'm gonna do a couple more questions, and then that's gonna be it for me for the day. And I want to thank so much. We raised $564 for the Stalking Victims Resource Center, and that is, you guys are fantastic. I want to thank you so much for putting your hard-earned money towards a great cause and helping people that are the victims of stalking. You guys are fantastic, and we didn't even have a huge viewership today. We had like 500 of you joining me, and that's just wonderful what you're able to do today. So thank you so much. You guys are just the best. All right. A couple more questions here. Okay. there's people talking about Motley Fool and who owns them, and Market Watch. A lot of those financial things are definitely owned by hedge funds, or at least influenced by them heavily. And we saw in the Anatomy of Short Attack article about, Jim Cramer basically admitting that, yeah, those hedge funds will pay us to talk trash about a stock. I mean, it's totally illegal. It's manipulation, but they get away with it. And you might see articles that are presented as legit articles, but they are paid for by short hedge funds wanting a stock to be trashed. Okay. All right. This is from Jordan. Hi, Houston. Are most of the shares of AMC being traded daily just brand new synthetic shares that will have to be covered? I don't know. We don't have much data as to who is selling shares. We get a glimpse every day from Fidelity will post this like the top 30 traded stocks by volume through their brokerage, and AMC and GameStop have been at the top, like in the top 10 of that thing every day for 7 months now, and they'll show like the ratio of buy to sell, and that can kind of give you an idea of what kind of stocks are moving. If you're seeing a lot more buying than selling, my guess is a lot more synthetics are being generated, because that's when those market makers step in and they start selling synthetic shares, those naked shares, to keep liquidity moving through the market. And so if you're seeing a large volume sold of AMC traded that day, and you look at the Fidelity graph of their customers, and that graph is showing a lot more buying by their customers than selling, my guess is a lot of those shares and that volume traded are synthetic and have to be covered. So, yeah. Oh, and another donation. Thank you so much. We're up to $569. Yeah. So I don't see too many. Jimmy D's asking about the current UFO sightings. Some weird stuff, man. The camera technology that our $80 million fighter jets have is garbage. I can tell you that much. Like, this camera is terrible that I'm using, and I think it's a better camera than what they've got on a fighter jet trying to track a UFO in the Pacific off of San Diego than what they were using. What charities am I looking at post MOAS? This is from Chris T. I will probably, when I donate, it'll probably be to lots of local charities that I like, because like I've my friend Jeremy runs this really cool school that teaches kids how to like weld and do metal arts, and it's fantastic. And these kids build such awesome things. Jeremy's the one that did all the metal work on my war rig, on my Mitsubishi Montero. He built the bumpers and the slide rails and skid plates and all that stuff. He does really cool work, and he teaches these kids in summer camps. Has this nonprofit where he teaches kids how to weld and smith and do all sorts of cool things. I would love to be able to have money to donate to him to keep that charity going, those summer camps going for kids, because they just build such cool stuff, and it's so rewarding to like you to come up with an idea and make something and see it through. It's a thing a lot of kids don't get anymore, especially since we don't have these industrial arts in public schools anymore. We don't have, you can't work on cars in high school. You aren't working with metal. A lot of wood shops are canceled, and so a lot of these like practical skills that people also can turn into lifelong hobbies they don't have access to, and I want to be able to keep that going. So I'd probably donate to Jeremy's group, Alchemy Industrial Arts and Monkey Wrench Fabrications. Those are his little companies he has. He's an awesome dude. He's also a former Fulbright scholar. He's a genius. He just happens to have a lot of tattoos all over his neck and face, and a lot of people are scared of him, but he's a brilliant man. So yeah, I'd probably focus on local charities. I also would like to, my high school baseball field is trash, and I would love to be able to get the opportunity for the kids at my high school to like have a good field to play on. We play our charity baseball game every 4th of July on it, and somebody like always takes a shot to the face or nuts because it's just like gravel. It's such garbage, and the old guys are getting injured from that field alone. I mean, I twisted my ankle running out a fly ball to first base because it's just such a terrible field. So I'd like to be able to make local impacts, and I assume that a lot of you will be doing that too, because it's when you donate to things locally, you see your impact, you see it being used. There's lots of local food banks, lots of charities that help people with rent and homelessness, and I'm hoping to be able to donate to things like that. So I hope all of you can find the right charities you can donate for those things. Yeah, so there you go. All right, I'm pretty much out of voice today. I want to thank you guys so much for donating to my charity podcast I did today. You're wonderful. Thank you. Also, I am not too proud to hit you all up for when I'm traveling for those meals you're promising me. I'll eat every single one of those things. So thank you so much. Have a great night. And I might be able to do another show tomorrow. My schedule, I'm going to have an opening in that. I have to see if I'm going to be doing a donation with, an interview with Rocky Outcrop and Jamie. So we'll see when we can fit each other in. Also, should be doing another one with the Gist here coming up with Josh Hamilton from the Gist, and then he'll probably come on my show as well. So we got to get all that stuff organized. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great night, and I love you all. All right, 569.